For my TED Talk analysis, I chose to watch The Power of Vulnerability done by Brené Brown, who studies human connection. She shares this talk from her research. She also published a book and a theory before performing this talk. Overall, I think she did a great job on her presentation. A couple of things I found interesting about the way she presented was that she would say something personal and then relate it back to the audience or her research. The other thing I enjoyed was that you could tell how passionate she was about the topic of vulnerability and how extensive her research was and her personal journey through it. She presents herself as very qualified and takes ownership of her thoughts, opinions, and findings in her research. She uses a digital slideshow to highlight the main points of her talk while also keeping the audience engaged. Brené Brown effectively delivers her talk and uses humor and personal stories to keep it light. A couple of things I noted that could be improved upon included her dress, her posture, and her excessive use of verbal fillers such as As far as structure goes, I thought Brené had a great attention grabber, introduction, and conclusion, but could work on clarifying the outline of her body of her presentation. She grabbed the audience's attention by stating that she is a self-proclaimed storyteller researcher after having been called a storyteller and feeling insecure about that title. Brené Brown introduces her talk by stating that she will talk about expanding perception through a series of stories that highlight a piece of her research that expanded her own perception. The body of her talk is where it gets a little fuzzy. I could track what she was saying but couldn't outline it clearly for myself in an organized way. Brené starts by talking about connection and how her research led her to discover that shame and fear were the outcome of an unraveled sense of connection. She continued her research by interviewing thousands of people. Through this research, she found that people who lived without shame lived in courage, compassion, connection, and thus vulnerability. Brené found that vulnerability was the birthplace of creativity and joy, and shame clouded that. She then went on to talk about how through her extensive research, she discovered that we as humans numb vulnerability, and through it, feel vulnerable, a dangerous cycle of shame and fear. Brené concludes her talk by giving 4 clear ways to expand perception: letting ourselves be fully known as who we are, loving wholeheartedly even though it means we might get hurt, practicing gratitude, and believing that we are enough. She ended her presentation by saying that through integrating these 4 things into our lives, we will have expanded our perception and thus be kinder to the people around us and ourselves.